Let's get the thoughts of a former Premier League referee. Dermot Gallagher, delighted to say, is here. Let's start. Howard Webb, marks out of 10, do you think, for his performance last night?
I think he deserves 2 gold medals after the match, to be honest, because he's gone into a game which is the most prestigious level referee in his life, and he's come out of one that he will never ever, if he lives to be 100, referee a tougher match. I've never seen a referee put under so much pressure. I've never seen a team employ so much bully boy tactics, and the way they harangued him at the end was absolute disgrace, to be honest.
How much responsibility and how much should perhaps FIFA and UEFA and the Premier League, the FA, turn around to players and say, look, there's a responsibility on you as well as the referee in situations like this?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that it's players' responsibility. You know, I read on the way down papers from the Dutch saying, you know, what he's done and how he's not done very well. I don't see, if you take the De Jong tackle out, take that aside, you know, I thought it was a red card. I thought he was unlucky. He was on the wrong side. He didn't see it properly as he would have liked to have done. Other than that, I don't think he's got much to really look back in anger at himself, because he's gone out. He's been tested to the absolute limit. It's a long, long time since I've seen a referee put under so much pressure. I listened to the pundits at half-time yesterday, said Holland should be down to 9 men. Well, that's all well and good saying that, but if they were down to 9 men, I think we'd have the other stories. The referee's gone out and he's ruined the game. He was in a totally non-win situation last night. I think the one thing I can say is that this World Cup has been very, very tolerant by referees. There's nearly 100 yellow cards shown less than in Germany. I don't think there's 100 tackles far improved from Germany. I think that speaks for itself, and I think Howard Webb went out last night. He was strong, he was tested, and he stood up to the test.
Let's have a look at some of the stats, shall we, from the final. 28 fouls committed by Dutch players during the 120 minutes of the game. That's 1 every 4 minutes.
47 free kicks in 2 hours of football is an awful lot.
And there could have been more.
Absolutely. It's not what we want to see. It's not what anybody wants to see. When I was so pleased on Thursday night when I heard Howard got the final, I was absolutely thrilled for him. And yesterday morning people were asking me about the match. I said it's 2 footballing teams. I think it'd be a great occasion. All we want to do is look back and forget that Howard was ever referee and accept his family and friends. But now that's all we're talking about. But we're talking about it not because of him. He's actually a victim in this.
Yep.
The players should take an awful lot of responsibility for what went on. People like Van Bommel just harangued him from the word go. And there was some terrible, terrible stuff going on. And every single decision he was pressured. And I just think he stood up really, really well last night.
Let's talk about Van Bommel, shall we? Because he's got previous in this tournament. He's got previous throughout his career. He could have been sent off. A neutral could say he could have been sent off about 3 times over in this one game alone.
I thought he was a red card waiting to happen from the quarter-final, to be honest. But you know, he rode his luck, he'll say, and you know, he was another one who bullied the referee. I thought, you know, at times I thought he was trying to referee the game. And you know, in fairness to Howard, he's in a very difficult situation because there's a very fine line between refereeing a World Cup final and ruining it. But what it did prove last night is that I thought he took this line that I'm going to try and make this game better, and it did prove last night that no matter how bad a game is and how good a referee is, he can't make a bad game into a good game.
You've got up close and personal with Van Bommel. How difficult is he a player to referee, and does he try and do your job for you on occasions? It certainly looked like it last night.
He's a very strong personality, you know, and he's been like that for a long, long time in Dutch football and around Europe. And there's no doubt about it. He uses the influence. He tries to influence people. You know, he's a very, very hard tackler. There's no doubt about that. He's right on the edge all the time. You see last night, every time there was a decision against Holland, he was the first player there. And we've even got Van Bronckhorst, who's readily accepting the yellow card and having to wave him away himself, saying, yeah, I know, I deserve it. And still Van Bommel wouldn't accept it. At the end of the game, he led the players to Howard again, you know, after the match. I can't see how anybody could blame the referee, any Dutch player could blame the referee. When you look back at the stats, they could have finished a lot less players than they did, and they still blame the referee. It's outrageous.
Is there ever a decision? I remember Vinnie Jones getting booked in the opening 4 seconds of a match one time. Is there ever an occasion where you've known you're coming up against a player like this and you thought, right, I'm going to clamp down on him early, give him a yellow, if he does it again I can get rid of him? Yeah, does that thinking ever... Because I was watching his last night and I thought, book him early.
Yeah.
And then he can't do any of those antics anymore.
We actually felt when I was at training camp that we had the wrong psychology for players like that we actually tried to work with problem players because we would be accused of picking on them. And when you look at it, you look back and you think, why would I work on a problem player for 30 minutes to keep him on the field and look after him and try and talk to him when some innocent player, if you like, commits a foul and I readily give him a yellow card? So I think there's that notion, but that notion's changing because the referees, as they've evolved professionally, have started to take that into consideration. I think there's a less inclined to do that.
So let's talk about some big decisions in there. Let's talk about, very quickly, to sum up on Van Bommel. Did Howard Webb get it right to keep him on the pitch, or should he have taken one of a number of opportunities and got rid of him?
I think he was right to caution him for the first tackle. After that, I think he's really looking for one where it's going to be 100% sure. And the one thing it says, the Dutch player went, nobody could argue with that. He was on a yellow card, he's pulled the guy back, and everybody goes, yes. And I think in the World Cup final, that's what Howard wanted. He wanted one where everybody go, yeah, he had no alternative.
But he could have done that much earlier. De Jong on Xabi Alonso.
Yeah.
Was he unsighted there? Did he just try and give him another chance? What was going through his mind at that point?
All I can think, I haven't spoken to Howard this morning, all I can think is he did not see that as we see it, because without doubt, if he was sat next to me now, he would hold his hand up and say that's a red card. That was a terrible, terrible tackle. All I can think is Alonso's body must have covered the impact or whatever. He cannot possibly have seen that as we see it, because he would not have given a yellow card, he would give a red card.
Okay, Robin through on goal. Puyol, was that the right decision? And the aftermath of that as well. How did he handle that?
I think that's a decision that could go either way because they were pulling each other. Robin's obviously going to... He's still got the best of both worlds actually, because he got away, he got his shot in. I think he might have chased after Howard and patted him on the back and said he was the most wonderful referee in the world if the goalkeeper hadn't saved that shot. But unfortunately it didn't, and I thought Howard did ever so well really to turn his back on him and go away and just move away. And what it did, it forced Robin, if he wanted a descent, to keep going and going and going, and it becomes so blatant that when he yellow carded him, everybody said, well, what does he expect? And I think that's clever refereeing, to be honest.
Okay, later in the game, Xavi kicked the ball away after the whistle had gone. Before that, Robin had gone through on goal, put the ball in the back of the net, already on a yellow. He chose Howard Webb to ignore that.
He did, yeah.
Yet booked Xavi later.
Yeah.
What's the thinking there?
Well, I think that's where you leave yourself a little bit vulnerable. In that situation, I think, with the Robin one, if you go and speak to him, you've left yourself wide open. You either ignore it and say you didn't see it, or you do him. I don't think in a World Cup final many people really wanted a guy sent off for that kind of offence. So he's let it go. The unfortunate thing is, 2 minutes later it's happened the other end. Xavi's kicked the ball away and he's taken the action. That's where, as referees, we do leave ourselves vulnerable. But that was small in compared to what happened.
Iniesta taking his shirt off, is that just the rules and referees are going to get slaughtered for it, but if they don't do it they're going to get slaughtered by their governing body?
Talk about slaughtered. I'd lost count of who got yellow cards, and my first thought when that happened was, I hope this guy hasn't already got one, because can you imagine he scored a winning goal in a World Cup final and been sent off for it? The referee would have been hammered then. It's just something that FIFA will not tolerate, and you can't say you didn't see it. It's impossible for a referee not to see that, but every player accepts it. It's amazing.
Slated in Holland, not particularly enamoured in Spain. Howard Webb, marks out of 10 for that, but also really should his standing in the world game be higher than it is this morning?
Definitely, he's proved that by the appointment is based on what he's done. An interesting thing that people haven't picked up, this is his first World Cup. He'd never been to a World Cup before. He did 2 group games, Spain was one, which I thought he did well. They didn't like him and that's why they moaned about him before the game. He did Italy-Slovakia, which he did exceptionally well on, I thought. And then he did the Brazil-Chile game, which I thought was a refereeing performance of the tournament. And I think based on that, that's what gave him the platform to do the World Cup final. He's got the World Cup final because he went out there right up to the semi-finals. For a top referee, he made a minimum of mistakes. Not only him, but his team. His 2 lines with Mike Malarkey and Darren Cam were exceptional. The amount of times things were replayed, offsides, decisions, the ball over the line in the Italy-Slovakia game, which wasn't that Darren spotted really well, was incredible. And I think the whole team performance was the complete job. That's why they got it, and that's why they'll come home, you know, to a hero's welcome, I hope, from every referee and every football fan in this country, because they've done this country proud.